Hi, everyone. I'm Denise Garth, Chief Strategy Officer at Majesco, and you're listening to the Future of Insurance Industry Leaders podcast series. Follow along as I interview the best and brightest leaders in the insurance industry and insurtech landscape to bring you the latest in digital transformation, innovation, industry trends, challenges, and opportunities, as well as next-gen technologies. We use our experience to anticipate what's next without losing sight of what's now. Stay tuned to find out your next now. Welcome, everybody, to today's podcast for the Future of Insurance. And I am thrilled to have Richard Hutchinson, the CEO of OpenRoad, joining me. This is the second startup that we have worked with Richard on. It's just been amazing working with him. So for those of you that don't know Richard, I'm going to have him introduce himself and give a little bit of background and who OpenRoad is. Richard, welcome.
Thank you, Denise. Thank you for inviting me. I'm glad to be here. My background, I hate almost to say this, I'm at 40 years plus, I think, in the industry, both personal line side and commercial lines. I did 29 of those years at Progressive, and the remaining have been at Hagerty and Forge, and across all that in varied management roles, both product distribution, overall general management. So I've paid my dues. I'm the CEO of OpenRoad, as you said, and this is a MGA startup, and it's a specialty business focused on collector vehicles. Excited to be in this position.
I know you and I was emailing you back and forth earlier this summer that where my husband and I have a house on a lake that we grew up on. They have a huge collector car event over the weekend, and it was like 2.5 hours of these collector cars driving around the lake, which makes OpenRoad really interesting for me, having seen all of these collector cars. You guys have really built it from the ground up. What do you think the differences and the challenges are compared to transforming an existing company that you were able to take advantage of, Richard?
Denise, there's quite a few. I'd start by saying each has their own set of challenges and opportunities that go with them. So first of all, if you have the opportunity, you have to decide, which route would I want to pick. But I'd say, some of the challenges with new is you have zero brand identity and awareness to start with. You also have to start from scratch with building distribution relationships, which takes time and energy. And the same goes for, designing your product and doing your state filings and all your compliance. And the same with your operations infrastructure. Also, you have no existing tech platform to go at the market with. You also have no tech legacy debt. That's on the plus side. And that takes time and money to build if you're going to do it at the start as well. On the positive side, say, why would you go down that route? It's you get to select your team versus inherit them. So if you have great partners and colleagues you can do this with, you can build yourself an exciting crew. And then probably the biggest one is you get the benefit of news. You can apply your best practices to your business model that you've learned based on your own experiences. So you get to be who you want to be. That's how I'd respond to that.
So obviously, when you're kind of starting from scratch, finding the right partners with the right culture and technology play into you building this from the ground up so you can leverage your expertise and your best practices, leverage the knowledge of the staff that you bring on board. What did you look for in technology, Richard?
It's going to sound like I'm kissing up to you, Denise, but having played this game multiple times before, I went straight to Majesco. The reason I did that was based on my experiences. And, Majesco, to me, brings a lot of industry experience and breadth across all the aspects of building a digital platform. And, I wanted to have a fully integrated platform from the portals all the way through all the different components that one needs in order to sell and process insurance. So having done that before with you all, I went and decided, okay, I go hopefully dance with the partner I liked. And you guys were kind enough to take me back. I did that. But, I would just say overall, the topic of partners is absolutely critical. So in our case, we had to get a capital partner with deep pockets and patience to build a business correctly, because in the personal line side, there's a lot of work and investment and time to build momentum that's required. And then also you need, as an MGA, I need the right capacity partner with sort of the breadth of state licenses and the financial strength and other assets that they can bring to the launch of the business. And in my case, I have Griffin Capital as the capital partner, and National Interstate as my capacity partner, and I've been very fortunate. They have all those aspects I just listed for you.
Yeah.
And then to make it even more exciting, you'll end up probably, in our case, we end up with a dozen partners on the tech integration, because you start, needing marketing support and claim support and underwriting data and all the different dimensions of, how you do business. And so, you have to find the right group there, and then the API integration of all that is critical, which you guys have been very good to us for.
So I know when I talked to some of your team that are going to be on my panel at ITC, one of the things that we talked about is the build from the ground up, both from a business process standpoint and taking advantage of best practices, out of the box capabilities as much as possible, but really honing in on where you guys were really going to differentiate, and then kind of building on that. What, in your view, were the key factors for success, and how long did it take for you guys to kind of go live?
Well, it took us a while. We wanted to sort of control our destiny. We wanted to build our individual business and not have it be part of another business. So we wanted that independence. So probably the biggest aspect of that is the technical part. Where I grew up, they always had a saying of all roads lead to the tech world. So you need that right partner. And in our case, since we wanted to do it with you and we wanted to have it be fully across all aspects, ranging, as I said, from the portals to the policy administration, to the claims, to the billing, the payment process, all the components that go in there, it takes a while to build. And with us making for a super complicated process, it took us just a little under a year. So that's a long road. And then, now we launched in July. The good news is we're currently in 10 states with more coming, but, I wouldn't say we're at success yet. I would say we're down the road. We're working hard. We got ourselves up, but now we're into other challenges of the business, which is polishing the experience and building out the distribution. So we're just in another chapter of the journey. A lot of hurdles already met and more to come. So.
Well, what's exciting for us is that you guys actually were one of the first to implement our Intelligent Core. That's with embedded analytics, having you have access to all your operational data, and most importantly, Microsoft Copilot, our GenAI capability. What excites you about this? Because I know we're kind of working with some of your team to kind of do a little benchmarking. What excites you about this for your operation, and what it's going to be able to do to kind of give you an edge? And what business value do you see for your company having the embedded analytics, Richard?
Well, Denise, my experience, data is the lifeblood of our business. My old colleagues at Progressive proved out that capturing, analyzing, and segmenting with data is key to success. So as a young startup, trying to embed that culture into our business as we go. So I'm very excited at the thought of, having the ability to capture it and analyze it, at that source, and to have it be very easy for us. But we intend to use it a lot, and we're counting on Intelligent Core to be, the foundation of that capturing of the data and giving us all the analytic capabilities that we need. We're already starting, but as I shared, we just launched, so the data is building. So it's going to be a while before we fully build it out to where we want to take it to. But I think, anybody who's trying to run a very effective insurance business in this day and age absolutely needs great data strengths, both in terms of the databases themselves, the analytics, be able to understand it, act on it, visualize it. That's a key part of our future strategy.
And I would say, given the niche nature of your product and your market, it's probably even more important than ever to have those capabilities really fine-tuned.
Very much so. You're preaching to the choir there.
One of the key areas that you kind of touched on that's in kind of your next phase is creating this ease of doing business with agents, brokers, and customers. And I know that this is an area from a startup standpoint that you really wanted to kind of focus in on, and how you kind of engage them from a digital standpoint. What did you guys do from a portal standpoint differently, and what's been the feedback from your agents?
As you point out, each business is a key part of strategy. And to me, it's really about, customer satisfaction or agent satisfaction, which drives, growth and retention. also translates into speed of being able to transact. So, digital platforms at the heart of all that. You're seeing more and more in the industry is for very frequent activities, if you provide the ability for the agent or client to be able to do it themselves, they're actually happier. They don't have to wait, and allows them to move on and be more effective. And again, if you have to build all that into your model, for us, we tried to build the portals where we, provide that self-service functionality, whether it be quoting or, servicing, any of that, and then allow bringing in data as well into that process to allow for faster, easier experiences. We're tracking net promoter scores to see if we're achieving the intended experience, but so far so good. We're new, but we've already got, a couple dozen, and our scores are very high. So that reflects well on the build out and the digital capabilities of the platform. And the agent feedback's been very good. They appreciate the simplicity and that self-service functionality.
Great foundation for growth. Partnerships, people think it's easy, but it's not always, because it really needs to be understanding expectations from a partnership and a relationship aspect. What do you think are the most important aspects in a partnership and the expectations you kind of put out there?
In my opinion, the key components is to set your expectations with your partners all the way at the very start of your relationship. Be very clear with each other as to what each intends and then what each is expecting from each other. And you have to go through this kind of upfront exercise to really get detailed as to all aspects of the relationship and define, who's responsible for each part, or is it a shared effort? Again, just so there's no surprises going forward. And then the other, big part to this is constant and clear communications to avoid surprises. So everybody feels like the other party is operating in good faith. On the technology side, we have a very solid process with Majesco. It starts with the blueprint phases that Majesco asks of you to go through, which, each of the platform modules is reviewed. And then you go through all the setup of the options, and you have to go through all the decision making as to how you want to achieve that. And then they're documented. And it's time consuming, but it's very valuable. Then it goes into the build process where you have these 2-week sprints. And at the end of the sprints, you review what you've done, and then you go over it again. All that with the intent of being very clear so that there's no surprises way down the road. So a lot of checking in, doing the build and the prep. In our case, it has led to a very clean launch. There's been very few surprises, a lot of great communications. We really appreciated that.
You kind of alluded to this about what's next for OpenRoad, but I know when I talk to your guys, there hasn't been a lot of real innovation, both from what the market, reaching the market, and also products in this classic cars kind of niche for some time. And so I would guess that you guys are going to have some interesting kind of next things that you're going to be doing. What can you share?
Denise, I'd say right now, what I would preach to my team is to stay the course on our first phase, because it takes a while to build it out. So, it's standing up our operations, rolling out all the states, polishing the quote and service flow experiences, and then building out our distribution channel. So, for me, I'd say our next year is definitely already taken care of on that front. Once we have it going, then we'll hopefully have the luxury of saying, okay, where do we want to take it to next? But, from my experience, you set on these 3-year objectives and chase them and make sure you hit them and then come up for air. But I'd say we're in that first stage.
Very good. With your experience, from a startup standpoint, what advice would you give other startups, Richard?
Denise, you've been covering it in this conversation, but I would say, first and foremost, select your team and partners well, because you'll definitely live with that. Secondly, I'd say, digital platform is your neural network to the whole system. So choose that well. And then, it's going to be everything that you probably have already read and heard, which is being an entrepreneur is not an easy path. So get ready to work hard, meet your challenges, stay resilient, stay flexible. And it's definitely not a large company culture, which, from my background, I've been in large companies and then now coming into tech startups. It's a small group. You rely on each other. You pivot. Be prepared to be excited.
Yeah, even our experience, in the insurtech space, having the right partner from a private equity standpoint makes a big difference too.
Oh, huge,
I know
huge.
you guys have a fantastic one.
Yeah, we do. We do. Absolutely. Griffin's been wonderful. Yep.
I always like to end my podcast with this question for everybody, and there's been very little duplication, Richard. Maybe some variations of things, but very little duplication. So if you could use one word or phrase to describe the future of insurance, what would it be and why?
Denise, I thought about it. Future insurance is going to be dominated in the foreseeable future by climate risk. This week in particular, we're all reading about Hurricane Helene and what it's done, particularly to Western North Carolina, and it's just continuing. And even though I'm in a niche, I think at a grand scale, it's that, and the implications on geography and property are going to be dominant in our industry.
Nobody's talked about that. It is becoming a bigger issue. That's where data and analytics are going to be absolutely crucial.
I have some further thoughts on the future of insurance, but I think a continuing trend, if you get past the climate risk, but to me, climate risk is at the top. Beyond that, what you're seeing is continued focus on reduced expenses. I lived it in my career on the personal line side. We've seen it in the commercial line side as well. Tech has been very helpful in all that. So the conversation we've just been having about self-service and efficiency and speed, and you start thinking about AI and all these other things. It's really about driving the expenses further down. It's a need on the part of our clients, but at the end of the day, price matters. So they're looking for that reduction in expense. And then, as many in the industry are often reminding people, it's risk underwriting, which is at the core of our business. So whatever your category is, it's, really studying it, understanding the drivers of risk, and then pricing that correctly. So
yeah, I think not only does price matter, but it really is tied to avoiding what we're unfortunately seeing now because of the rise of risk and the rise in price is a protection gap growing again. Yeah. And that's really the opposite of what we want to do from an industry standpoint.
We're seeing, particularly back in the first topic, which is climate risk. We read about the markets that dominate are Florida and California, and it's because it's where the populations are, but you're ending up with some real gaps there as to how to meet that risk. But the insurance industry being a for-profit industry, it's getting really complicated to be able to make a profit in some of those spaces based on what's happening. So,
well, as always, Richard, it's wonderful visiting with you. And I'm hoping next year when we have the classic car tour around the lake that I see OpenRoad front and center at the event over the weekend. It'll be fun to see all you guys there.
Well, thank you, Denise. I hope we're there with you. I'm looking forward to it. And thank you for inviting me again. And thank you, Majesco, for all that you've done for us.
Well, thank you for the trust that you put in us. And we look forward to growing with you.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
That's it for this week's episode of Future of Insurance Industry Leaders podcast. Subscribe to our market-leading podcast series available wherever you get your podcast from. Thank you for listening, and be sure to tune in the next time.